So good afternoon, everyone. We are moving forward to our next symposium, that is Diabetes Education Study Group, part of EASD. And to proceed for the symposium and to handle it, we would like to invite our next chairpersons. We have Dr. Vijay Neglu, sir, consultant senior diabetologist from Mumbai. And we also have Dr. Purvi Chawla, consultant diabetologist from Mumbai. So I would like to invite them for this proceeding of this next DESG symposium. Over to you, ma'am and sir.
Thank you, Jimit, for your kind words of introduction. Thank you, Bansi Bhai, for calling for this particular session to chair. And we have 3 sessions here, very interesting and lively too. The first session will be on diabetes and hypertension. It will be spoken by Dr. Shalila Kare from Pune. She's Director of CAC Conference, Director of Orange Diabetes Medical Foundation Research Center, Pune, Joint Secretary of RSSDI Maharashtra Chapter, Member of Advisory Board for Diabetes and Pregnancy Group of India. With this word of introduction, we have this poll question. Target BP in patients with diabetes 140 by 90 or below 130 by 80. The time starts now. Please vote. I think now I request Dr. Shalila Kare to start her presentation on diabetes, hypertension, the double trouble in patients of diabetes. Over to you, Shalila.
So you want to read out the results of the polling?
Okay, the results of the polling is that 33% of the people are saying 140 by 90 and 67% saying have advanced thinking that they should get the pressure below 130 by 80. Shailaja, your take on that?
Yes, let's see now. And can I share my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I was not able to. Yeah. Thank you so much. And we will just see this question, how it changed from 2018 to 2020 about the choices of 140, 90 and 130, 80. So let me go through my few slides in next 15 to 20 minutes. I'll just minimize this. Yes. So good afternoon, everyone. And I am from Pune, India. And thanks the organizers, Dr. Bansi and all his team. The meeting is going great. And I think everyone is enjoying it. So we all know contribution of hypertension is still a major part of the burden of disease as well as mortality. When the data was reviewed about this global burden of hypertension in 2020, it still showed that high blood pressure remains the leading cause of death globally. Blood pressure trends show a clear shift from high income to low income groups, and you can see the number which is increasing. In the low resource setting, there are some challenges of poor access to medical care, lack of trained healthcare professional, cost of drugs is always the problem, and guidelines are always from the high income countries. Whether to translate the guidelines to your own country always remains ambiguous, and we don't know about the exact. So to understand this, the recent 2020 ISH guidelines has come out with its very simple clinical utility. So we'll see some ISH guidelines important aspect as well as American Diabetes Association. So this has developed worldwide practice guidelines, easy to use, friendly, not only for clinicians, but also for the healthcare professionals like non-medical, like nurses or community health workers as appropriate. So mainly looking at the world, whole world and all the countries, these guidelines have taken into account. Whenever we say these two comorbidities together, we know that there are lots of complications increase because of each other, and these two combination is not good. What we see that mortality risk increases whenever there is a coexistent hypertension, not only for the events as well as for the mortality. So whole microvascular risk goes up. Also for the microvascular complication, the risk is much higher in patients of type 2 diabetes who also has a hypertension, as well as we all know this coronary artery disease and the cardiac problems. As a whole, cardiovascular risk goes up. This slide actually is an eye opener when you can see from these major trials of CIST Europe or SHAPE trial or HOT trial, you see the event rate between people with diabetes and people without diabetes, those who participated in the trial. So all group was together as a cohort, but the event rate in patients with diabetes and hypertension was almost double, sometimes more than double. So just having these two things together, it pushes our patients of type 2 diabetes for a very high cardiovascular risk and mortality. L.A. Ferranini has very nicely shown that someone has a diabetes and coexistent hypertension. You can see there is more obesity, more albuminuria, more tendency to low GFR, more microvascular complications, and more event, that is odds ratio for getting events for MI is much higher, as well as for the stroke and the kidney damage. So just having some high blood pressure in a type 2 diabetic person, it pushes that person to the very high risk. The overall arterial tree is at a very high risk. The special characteristics of hypertension in diabetes: nocturnal hypertension is common. There is a lack of nocturnal dipping in arterial blood pressure, which is very well demonstrated in both type 1 and type 2. And this lack of nocturnal dipping is associated with increased risk of stroke and MI. So nighttime BP control and taking care of this becomes very important. Blood pressure of diabetic patients is more sensitive to salt intake, and this sodium sensitivity is found even in the absence of nephropathy. So the lifestyle intervention or a change which we advise, decrease salt intake, is paramount important in a diabetic person and needs to be followed very strictly. These three things are again very important. It's not only blood pressure, as now we are saying the glycemic burden. It is very important even for the blood pressure to remain under control for all 24 hours. The normal circadian rhythm. Early morning blood pressure surge is again a very important factor in people with type 2 diabetes, and one can see here the group with the early morning surge has a more silent cerebral infarct as well as the stroke events. And in the HONEST study which was shown, you can see here that morning systolic blood pressure, if it is high, even with the normal office blood pressure which is below 130 systolic, if early morning blood pressure is more than 145, you can say that event rate or the hazard ratio for cardiovascular risk is much higher. So in people with type 2 diabetes, we need to encourage our patients to check their early morning, or when they get up, the blood pressure needs to be checked before they take their medicines. Third target is, of course, blood pressure variability, and these are differently measured. There is some data, but overall it is that if there is a more variability, there is a 3.5-fold higher risk of mortality, cardiovascular mortality. So it's not only blood pressure, but the 24 hours blood pressure, early morning, night dip, all we need to tackle when we are treating our diabetic patients with hypertension, which is very important. Steno 2 was the first one which actually told us that multifactorial intervention by controlling blood pressure, A1C and lipids, there is a major reduction in cardiovascular risk which remains at a follow-up. So even long-term follow-up. So earlier control of these three, and the major contribution comes from blood pressure control, which has been studied in some kind of a cohort. It was 80% contribution comes from blood pressure, but in a meta-analysis, almost 33 to 50% contribution of risk reduction is just coming from simple, good blood pressure control. So that has to be emphasized in our patients, as well as treating physicians need to be aware of this. UK-PDS was the first trial which showed that any diabetes-related endpoints and mortality is reduced if blood pressure is better controlled. Events, infarct and stroke, yes, but microvascular complication significantly reduced if the blood pressure is under control. So there is a link between the big arteries and the small arteries, which I'll come at the end of my talk, how it is important that blood pressure is important even for the small arterial disease. Just a 2 millimeter decrease in systolic blood pressure translates into so much of benefit. And this is a meta-analysis of 61 prospective observational studies, show that 2 millimeters, just small change, translates into such a good reduction in ischemic coronary artery disease mortality as well as stroke mortality. The major trials supporting blood pressure lowering, you can see that 5 to 8 or a few millimeters of blood pressure, how it is translating into reduction of so much of cardiovascular events. We need to mention heart study when we are talking about diabetes and hypertension. This was an old study, but it showed first time when you target diastolic blood pressure, how it translates into risk reduction. So people without diabetes, if you push down diastolic blood pressure from 90 to 80, there is so much of risk reduction. You can see not much, but a slight improvement or slight reduction in the risk. But when the type 2 diabetic patients where diastolic blood pressure was pushed 90 to below 80, risk reduction is much more. So type 2 diabetic patients are benefited more with a good and a strict blood pressure control. So that is again very important. So these are the standard questions that what should be the target, what should be treated. This is again a very important observation from the major trials that delay of 3 months to 2 years in starting antihypertensive therapy can increase the risk of certain cardiovascular endpoints, especially stroke. And this is observation done from these major long trials. So, and this happens very routinely in our clinical practice, which we see that if the patients are not willing for many tablets, and if you delay the blood pressure treatment, you are pushing your patient or we are pushing our patients for the more kind of a risk. So initial stringent blood pressure control, same like how we say initial A1C control, is extremely important and crucial. So blood pressure goals, as we had that question initially, we will discuss few aspects of blood pressure goals that you can see here that from the accomplished data, I like this slide because it shows if you push down your systolic blood pressure from below 140 to below 120, which is being kind of a target by some guidelines, you can see cardiovascular death goes up when the systolic blood pressure is pushed below 120. All-cause mortality goes up, as we have seen in ACCORD, but the total stroke, actually there is a benefit. So for the cerebral circulation, there is a benefit of pushing down systolic blood pressure, but not true for the cardiovascular as well as all-cause mortality. And one needs to be extremely aware of that. Same thing was observed in ACCORD trial when the systolic blood pressure was pushed below 120, there was more event rate, and this was not recommended after the ACCORD as well as the INVEST, which was a large trial of type 2 diabetes with high CV risk that don't push down below 120. So 2020 recommendations of American Diabetes Association. You can see this is from the ISH guideline. This is from the ISH guideline 2020. Very clear instruction how the patient needs to be seated, feet flat on the floor, which instruments, quiet room, the cuff size, everything is important when we are checking our patient's blood pressure in the office or in the clinic. With the COVID, we are having lots of validated electronic upper arm cuff, which is, we are using some automatic blood pressures, but these machines need to be validated, and you can get the list of validated blood pressure from www.stridebp.org, which has been again linked with the ISH 2020 guidelines. So please check and have a good kind of a validated blood pressure machines in our clinic so that we can have all kind of correct measurements. One cannot ignore white coat hypertension, masked hypertension, and sustained hypertension. White coat and masked, one can see cardiovascular mortality is increased as well as there is a target organ damage. So if the patient says my blood pressure is increased when I see you in your clinic, we need to inform him that at the same time, your risk of cardiovascular problem is also going to be increased. So more and more encouragements for checkup of ambulatory blood pressure, especially in patients with lot of fluctuations or the white coat or a masked. Ambulatory pressure monitoring is a must. And there are very nice guidelines that when should patients check home blood pressure with good kind of a validated machines. The standard way how we give like glucose profiles at what time they should check. Early morning after getting up, before taking the tablets. They should not check blood pressure immediately after meals and 2 hours before bedtime. So we can write when they should check. And I think with this kind of a lockdown, a lot of patients are actually checking their blood pressures at home as well as the glucose. So if you see the targets, the ISH with the American guidelines, you can see the American College of Cardiology, there is still systolic targets are slightly lower compared to ISH. With the European, the targets are similar, but what I want to emphasize here is lifestyle interventions are must in every guideline. So smoking cessation, healthy diet, drinks, reduced salt, very important in type 2 diabetes, alcohol moderation, weight loss, simple weight loss, and a regular exercise. And we all know that muscle strengthening exercises, actually when the large group of muscles are used, such kind of exercises has a very good effect on blood pressure, a better effect than the aerobic exercise. Otherwise, the additional thing from the 2020, that's addition of stress management and avoid air pollution, which has shown an effect on the blood pressure in the population. So the goals for that question, so you can see both the answers were right by 2020 recommendations. In patients with ASCVD, diabetes and hypertension with ASCVD with 10 years CVD score of more than 50, blood pressure targets are below 130/80. Please read it carefully, if it can be attained safely. So you need to know the group where you may push adverse events or cardiovascular risk or mortality. So again, it has to be individualized, but the more cardiovascular risk, the goal is below 130/80. With low cardiovascular risk, that is ADA 2020, it can be 140/90 or 140/80. So confirmed, they need to start immediately on the single pill or 2 drugs. Treatment choices, we know that ACE inhibitors, ARBs, thiazide diuretics, and dihydropyridine calcium channel blockers. These are the 4 drugs which we use, and we all know that you need combinations, maybe right at the beginning. Choice of drugs is important. The large randomized control trials have shown that RAS blocking drugs are particularly important in patients with diabetes and high CV risk. At the same time, for preventing new onset microalbuminuria or kidney protection. So these drugs always have a first kind of a choice. Recent meta-analysis emphasizes, as you know, ACC 2018 guidelines, the priority of blood pressure lowering is very important and crucial over a choice of drug. So if your patient is very well controlled, who doesn't have albumin in the urine, with calcium channel blocker and a diuretic, I may not shift that patient to RAS blocking drug just because he has diabetes, if he doesn't have albumin in the urine. So blood pressure control remains the first target, then comes the choice of drugs. The accomplished has shown that calcium channel blocker and RAS blocking is a better combination rather than diuretics and RAS blocking, especially in patients with type 2 diabetes. Type 1, no doubt, ACE inhibitors has a level of evidence as a strong, not only for ESRD, but also for the cardiovascular risk reduction. In type 2 diabetes, no albumin, still RAS blocking drug, level of evidence is strong because it prevents new onset microalbuminuria. Patients with microscopic albumin or overt proteinuria, again, ACE and ARBs are the first drug of choice. ARBs have a level of strong evidence here with overt proteinuria, hypertension, but we all know these patients need 2 or 3 or maybe more than 3 drugs, but it should include ARB plus ACE inhibitor, maybe whatever suits the patients. This is one more just a mention about young Indian type 2 diabetic. There are so many young Indian people, 35, 40 years old, come with that 120, 100 type of hypertension with slightly higher resting heart rate. If you know, the average heart rate of young Indian is about 80. So slightly we have a more sympathetic activity, which pushes to increase RAS overactivation, and it is associated with high angiotensin II level. But it is not wrong if we treat these patients with beta blockers, maybe selective, and then of course the RAS blocking drug is a choice, but if there is nothing else, even beta blockers is a good choice.
Dr. Shailaja, may I intervene?
Yes.
I think the slides are not moving forward.
Actually, I don't know.
The slide set is not moving forward. It's on the first pharmacotherapy for hypertension in patients with diabetes.
I'm so sorry.
Can you just click somewhere on your slide?
Require a beta blocker.
Jimit, if you have the slide set, you can also start sharing.
Let me ask you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
I don't know about slides. I think I will end show and then again. Can you see now?
No.
No.
Okay. So I will stop sharing and then again.
Conclude the session.
Can you see now?
Hello.
No.
Can you see
Yes,
now?
Dr. Banshi.
No, ma'am. Can you share it again?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. Actually, I shared it again. I stopped and then again shared. Can you see?
Okay.
No, not yet.
So then I can just say, because I don't know what's happening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, we can hear you
can't
well.
see you.
So
can't
I
see
will
you either.
just say my points now because I think I'm
Sure.
just losing time in this. So what I was trying to mention is that RAS blocking drug is always the first drug of choice for type 2 diabetes patients without albumin or overt proteinuria, but you need combination. The recent ISH guidelines, what they are showing is that right at the step 1, you need a dual low dose combination that are the recommendations of ISH 2020, which fits in for India. So dual low dose combination like maybe RAS blocking drug, ASARB and a calcium channel blocker with the small dose. Then you can increase both the doses and then you add a third drug. That is the stepwise recommendation, which goes quite well in our practice. And there are trials done in India which has shown that actually low dose combinations right at the beginning benefit for reducing the risk, cardiovascular risk. And that was the difference. And there's some difference with the Indian guidelines with the ISH that initial single dose and then there can be recent guidelines are saying the combination. And I would like to end. So we saw the targets as 130/80 for the low CV risk, for 140/90 for the high CV risk, 130/80. I would like to end by making one point that diabetes and hypertension is a vascular disease. In the Framingham Heart Study group, it showed that excess cardiovascular mortality or risk comes with that additional blood pressure in type 2 diabetic people. It's not only quantitative problem in our patients with diabetes, that blood pressure, but also qualitative changes in the arterial stiffness. 24 hours blood pressure regulation is disturbed. There is more variability and decreased pulsatile flow among the arteries, which creates a problem and connects the large arteries and the small arteries in a person of type 2 diabetes with more aortic stiffness, increased pulsatile pressure airflow, which leads to more hyalinized and diabetes arteries, which impairs microvascular circulation. So treating blood pressure, improving elasticity of the arteries by maybe weight loss, exercise, and some specific drugs. And now we have SGLT2 inhibitors. You are actually improving even the microvascular structures. So what they say that diabetes is an arterial disease, it is very true. And you diagnose diabetes by checking sugar, but it's an arterial disease. If you take good care of these arteries, by having a good blood pressure, correct choice of drugs, we can really reduce the complications in our patients. So I stop here and then.
Dr. Neglur, you are not audible. You will have to unmute.
Thank you, Shailaja, for a nice presentation.